and welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. Very happy to be speaking with Carol Ann Miljavic. She is the author of, oddly enough, 3-minute devotions to passionately pursuing your purpose. Good morning.
Good morning.
Carol Ann, I love the title. First of all, you seem to understand a woman like myself. 3-minute devotions, that's just about right. So where did you come up with this idea?
Well, my first book is called Oddly Enough, and so the devotions was based on the first book, and it just kind of took all of the best thoughts and quotes and messages out of the book and made them really short and sweet for people like you who just need something really simple. And it also pairs it with a scripture and then a short little prayer at the end. So it's a good way in the morning to spend some time alone and just have a little bit of that time with God before you head out for your day, and hopefully it lifts your spirits.
Isn't it just the way it is when I've heard this so many times that the rudder is the first 5 minutes is the rudder of the day, rather. And it is. It's whatever we point to first thing in the morning that seems to direct the rest of our day, how differently our day looks when we just take that time to spend a moment with God before we attempt to venture out than when we don't. You have some comments on that?
Oh, yes. It's the first 20 minutes after you wake up have the largest impact on your perspective for the rest of the day.
Wow.
So a lot of the times when you wake up in the morning, your first thoughts are how tired you are, how you just want to go back to bed. I always say to myself, oh, you know what, I'm going to drop the kids off at school and I'm just going to take a little nap, which never happens. But when we wake up and we start saying those things to ourselves immediately, and then, you might have some negative self-talk that creeps into your thoughts first thing in the morning. And that happens for a reason. It's because, I absolutely believe the enemy knows that the rest of your day is shaped by the way you start it. And, you can have a bad day, but if you started your day with a different perspective, you'll see that bad day in a different light. And so I think that's one big reason why so many people who take time in the morning to do something that uplifts their spirits and helps them to, clear their heads before they start their day, just tend to end up being happier and able to handle road rage better and all of that. So.
Well, it's a great recipe, and it just seems like, gosh, something so simple. Why don't we just do it? Because it seems too easy to grab our phone and go straight to what messages do I need to read right now that people needed to get to me immediately? What's the news? Oh, boy. Don't start the first 20 minutes with news headlines. That'll ruin your day. So how different to just focus, get our eyes off the waves and onto Jesus, right? And then we won't go under.
Yes. And, it doesn't take, some people have a really long morning routine. It can be, some people are hardcore and will do a whole hour, and
awesome.
Others will do half an hour, 20 minutes. But if you are in a bind where you just really need a good 5 minutes to just see something that, a lot of times I think you end up seeing something you needed and you didn't even know you needed it.
Right.
And it just kind of helps you start the day with a different energy and joy about you, and it makes whatever lies ahead for that day hit you a little differently. So I think any successful person in life or happy person in life will tell you that they have a really healthy morning routine.
Yes.
So I do think it's important. And I am preaching at myself here.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that struggles.
And I was thinking, we never learn more than when we're teaching others. This had to be a great exercise for you to come up with these 3-minute devotions for yourself.
Yes. Well, the devotions weren't so hard because they were pulled straight from the book. So when I was writing the book, it's called Oddly Enough, Standing Out When the World Begs You to Stand. So that really took a lot of time. And so the devotional was not as hard to go in and find those best moments and those best quotes that would just really settle with your soul. And you think, I really want to remember that. And some people like to highlight, but so we created the whole other devotional so that you have them right there at your fingertips, easy to find. And there's a lot of them in there. It'll last you a while, and hopefully you'll go back through and reread them. And
yes,
and I think it's a little different than a typical devotional, just because it's written the same way I wrote the book, where it's more of a conversational style. It's not necessarily teaching. It's more of a these are some things that I've been through in life and how it impacted me, and this is what I pray for to help me through it.
It's almost
And
like grab a cup of coffee, let's sit down and let's just be real with each other.
yes, yes. That's the way I hoped it would come across, like you're having a conversation with a really good friend just across the table from each other.
Well,
And so,
what I was just going to say is they really go hand in hand to have the
yeah,
Oddly Enough book and then have the Oddly Enough devotions at the same time. It's a great thing to go hand in hand. And like you say, later on in the day, something will no doubt happen where that devotion will come back and be the answer that just you needed for that moment to face that at that point in time. It's amazing how God equips us that way. Let's go back and talk about Oddly Enough, the book. Tell us a little bit more about that.
well, I grew up in the Deep South, and I grew up in poverty. We had very little, and so very humble beginnings. And my entire life, I always kind of felt like I was less than everybody else around me. I was also molested when I was young and bullied a lot because of our financial struggles. And so I really had never read anything that I related to that much in terms of uplifting, encouragement, faith-based, that also somehow managed to combine humor. And so when I
Not
wrote
easy
this
to do.
book, no, it's not. It's because we're talking about hardships, and
Yes.
we've had fair shares, and the whole point I wanted was to I really wanted women to walk away from reading it feeling like they'd been seen, and feeling like, if this person can go through all of these things and learn so much through it, then so can I.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the whole idea, is that everything you've been through makes you oddly enough for whatever purpose it is you've been created for. And many times you have to go through those things in order to discover that purpose. And so that was the point of the book. And I feel really good about it. I think that it achieved that purpose just through being incredibly vulnerable and honest about the struggle that it is to maintain faith in hard times. We lost my niece to cancer. She was only 7 years old when she passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so that's a huge piece of the book, is laughter after loss and faith after loss. And, everyone's lost somebody dear to them, and I knew somebody would be able to relate to that scenario, and maybe hopefully having their faith restored, but also being understood that it's okay to feel angry and it's okay to wonder why, but to always come back to the truth, and that is that you're loved no matter what. No matter what you've been through, you're loved. And so I wanted everyone to feel loved when they finished reading it.
Yes, absolutely. There's something about being a woman, though. Maybe it's the human condition, but I think women, because we're just so emotional, we feel odd, all of us. We go through these times where we do not feel like we've got a place. So that takes me to the passionately pursuing your purpose. First of all, how do we find out what that is, and why is that so important?
Well, I feel like there's always indicators throughout your life what your purpose is. And many times when we're so bogged down with overthinking and being so concerned with what everyone else thinks we're able to do, that we don't pick up on those signals. My entire life, I always felt like I was maybe meant to be in the space of comedy or speaking. But coming from where I did, it was always something I shut down the minute that it crossed my mind. And so I always tell everyone, if there is a thought that always crosses your mind that you could have done this, or you could have been good at that, and you just shove it down, but it keeps coming back, that's usually a sign that that is absolutely your calling. Because especially if it's something that makes you feel really nervous and scary, then it's not something that you come up with on your own. It's something that God is hinting to you that you were meant to do. And I think deep down we know what that is, and we just ignore it. So passion comes from not caring about the fear and just deciding that, if God keeps telling me I can do this, then you know what, I'm going to do it, because what's the worst that's going to happen? If it doesn't work out, so what? I tried. We only get one life. And I think for me personally, when my niece passed away, is when I would just really realize that I get one life, and I don't know how long it's going to be. And we say that. It usually takes something to wake you up. And you realize what's really important in life and what matters the most. And that's loving others through your service to God in the way that He's called you to serve them. And there's a lot of lessons that have to be learned along that way. And it's a lot of struggle and a lot of up and down. But passionately pursuing that purpose means not letting any person keep you from what you know deep down God has told you you can do. And once you do that, once you start putting some action steps and listening and having that alone time like we talked about with Him so that you feel discernment and clarity when you need it, you'll start finding yourself achieving things that felt completely impossible for you.
But Carol Ann, it is so easy if we get that first, we strive out, we're going to go do that thing. We know we've got this deep desire, and it's always been there on our hearts, and then we get discouraged in some way. It's very easy to fill up that space with busyness, like do this club and that club and bake this and clean the house one more time. It's very easy to find something else to do to squash that down. How do we get over that?
I think having a clear idea of what it is that you really want to achieve. What's the most important thing? What is it that you feel like God has really called you to do and how to serve? And then anything that's not in alignment with that, removing it. And so it requires boundaries, and it requires saying no. And sometimes it will require saying no to things that seem like great ideas or, really, if you find yourself in a space where you're so overwhelmed that you can't achieve anything to your fullest capacity, then that's a sign that you're saying yes to too many things. And most of the time, we say yes to things we know deep down we don't really have the time for, but we feel pressured to make everyone happy.
Yes.
And so it's the willingness to say, you know what? I have a clear-cut vision for what it is that I'm supposed to be achieving in my life. And, if I take on this and this and this and that, I can't focus on this one thing. And the people who don't understand that, they'll have to take it up with God. That's what I say.
Oh, that's a good way to answer them. Oh, man. Well, God definitely had me have you on today for a reason, and I'm just sitting here going, oh, my gosh. My husband always says, which half of the word no do you have so much trouble pronouncing?
I understand that for sure. I think I have a huge fear of disappointing people.
Yes.
It doesn't feel good for someone to be unhappy with you. But when your joy and your fulfillment is sourced from God and living out this life, achieving what it is He's called you to do, when that's your source of joy, then you have to let go and give some of that control up to Him and pray for those people who might be disappointed in you, but not let it dictate your actions. And it just takes really deciding that I'm going to, and you know what, there might be times where you should have said yes to something and you said no. It's all, we learn. This is life. You learn as you go, and you just do your absolute very best to make the good decisions. The beauty of when you're walking with God and when you're following His calling for you is that when you do make a mistake, He's just going to give you something extra to bring forward with you that's going to help you fulfill that calling even greater. So it's okay, and that's why it's completely okay to make mistakes and not be afraid to do that, knowing that He's going to always teach you something new no matter what.
That is so good. And when we're driven by doing something just because we don't want to disappoint someone, that could lead to a far greater disappointment way, a little down the road. So that, that's not going to be the answer. Those good things are not always the best things. So my goodness, I love what you're saying here is that, when we're just in His will, He'll cover for that. He'll cover. He's got us. He's got this. He does. All right, we are speaking with Carol Ann Miljavic, and she has written Oddly Enough, the 3-minute devotions to passionately pursue your purpose. You want to pick up both of those. We're going to be back with Carol Ann after these words. You're listening to Our Community.